Welcome to Neutral Voices. This is Voice of the People, where your voice truly matters. And I tell you, you guys have made your voice loud and clear on a couple of subjects that we had this week. We're going to go back to the first comments we're going to go into are your comments, but it's from our Tuesday night subject when we talked about the Parental Educational Rights Bill in Florida. Now, this has been hijacked and his name has been given another name.
Tweet.
It's been tweaked, and it's called they call it now the Don't Say Gay Bill. But if you read the bill, it has nothing to do with the word gay or gender.
Right. I was going to say, that. I wouldn't say it doesn't have anything to do with it. I would say the word gay or LGBTQ are not in the bill.
Really not included in the bill or not focused on in the bill. But, you know, they gave it a name, so we're going to, but it's actually called the Parental Educational Rights Bill, and it's in Florida. But one of the results were, or one of the comments were, somebody said, why not teach, and they put in quotation, gender ed, when sex ed is already being taught in the schools?
And so we want to keep it clear, the difference between the two.
Yes.
How do you put it?
Well, I'm going to assume, because I don't know how they wrote this, I'm assuming that they're talking about the regular sexual education classes, the biological, reproductive.
I was going to say, that's all I know.
That's what I would assume.
It's been a long time since I've been in high school.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, they still they teach it from that perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember having to watch like a video or something, and everybody was embarrassed.
Right, right.
And then that's when you had to carry either the egg or
the bag of flour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. To pretend like you had a baby, but other than that. So this person that made this comment, they're looking for what?
They put in quotations, why not teach gender ed? And I guess that's where they're referring to this bill, where this bill is they're saying that they're not supposed to speak of gender or not supposed to mention gay or anything. And it's not in that bill, but that's what the people in Florida are saying that this bill is against. Them letting students identify themselves or tell themselves that they are a different gender, or why aren't you teaching children that they can choose their gender? Or, and again, I'm just going by the comment. I can't infer what they were saying by being written.
Now, from my perspective, in thinking that and teaching it in school, being in the school system, I would say that's definitely one of the things that should be discussed at home.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come to school and you fill out your application, your enrollment papers, etc., there should be no questions as to who you are and what teacher you have in that class, whether they have a male or female. It's kind of a little scary right now, because when they asked for a count and they said, what is the male count to female count in your room? I remember giving my answer, and one of the students corrected me quickly when I said I had 2 boys. The student said, no, you have 2 boys and 1 queen. And what was I supposed to say to that?
That's a good question.
I kept my mouth shut, and I said, I have 2 boys.
Well,
okay, because I didn't know what to do with that, because a lot of times you're not looking at the paperwork, so you don't know. You're not looking at all of that. So you can, and so that's where we are today.
Yeah.
So,
in my perspective, if you're going to teach gender ed, because they had it in quotation, so I don't know what they mean by gender ed, but I'm just going to use their words. But if you're going to teach gender ed, you can't teach natural reproduction. So are you going to eliminate natural reproduction to teach gender ed? Because in the sex ed that we learned, it's only about natural reproduction. They don't just talk about humans. They actually talk about animals and in biology. They talk about natural reproduction, how the life cycle continues.
Right.
So are you saying once that you want gender ed taught, are we going to not teach natural reproduction?
And then remember what I said, when you start thinking about sex education, that's talking about between your legs.
Right.
When you're talking about gender education, then that's between the ears. So it's what that person is thinking, their mindset about who they are. And if they're going to operate, a boy is going to operate as a girl, and that's all he's going to do. What concerns me when we start talking about the school system is which bathroom they're going to go to And I believe all school systems, especially public school systems, should have all just unisex bathrooms and be done
No,
with
that's
it.
too dangerous.
They have to have one. And so what I'm saying is they got the boys, they got the girls, but they need to have an isolated unisex or what they call family bathroom so that person can feel comfortable. Because
I totally misunderstood you. I thought you was talking about making all
I'm
bathrooms
saying
unisex.
because we've had that, and this particular young lady, boy, went to the female bathroom. Mm-hmm. And so then you had a whole bunch of mess going on. So yeah, I mean, and that's as far as I can go with that, as far as the public school system and gender ed.
I got you on that. Do you have anything to go on that, Jill?
No.
Well, one more comment from that, and then we're going to move on to our oppression. This one says, who says it's a teacher's job or place to talk about a student's sexuality in the first place? A teacher's job is to teach and not counsel. If they are having issues, they should be directed to the professionals in the school system that are trained to deal with this issue.
So,
go ahead.
Okay.
So first off, who says that it's up to the teachers? So right now, the government is saying that. The teachers don't want, I don't know, I have a lot of teacher friends, and I don't know one teacher who would be excited about being put in that position to, one, make the decision, to two, educate somebody about their gender. Teachers are there, like the comment said, to teach. Gender, things like that need to be talked about at home. So who's saying that this needs to be done by the teachers? The government, the people who write the bill. The teachers don't want this, guarantee.
And I don't even know who's thinking that way, because when you say a teacher is not a counselor, I'll say that that's a false statement, because teachers teach. And sometimes, depending on what situation comes up, that teacher has to step into that position. I'm not a referee, and I'm not a bouncer, but I had a situation happen in my classroom today, and I had to act as such as I remove students from my classroom until they make it to the people in authority that handles that. So it just depends on the situation. And what I teach, cosmetology, guess what hairstylists do, and barbers? We counsel, baby, on a regular basis. You sitting with your therapist. And sometimes the only therapist that most people would trust. And so therefore, when you're in a classroom like that, you do have to teach a student how to communicate. And so it may sound like counseling, but to be clear with that, we are not talking about the sex of the child or trying to help them make that decision. So again, those things need to be dealt with at home. But when they come to our classroom, it is what it is, and we have to abide by whatever that student wants to be called.
Yeah, you assume the role. You do.
You do. So,
and both of you spoke very well, and I'm.
Well, thank you, sir. No, we are here to be.
No, I wasn't critiquing you.
I love it. I love it. It's all good.
But I didn't want to contradict you. I didn't want to contradict you, and I was going to put that point in there.
I love you.
I knew the butt.
I was going to put
coming.
that point in there. No, there was not a but. I was going to say, I don't want to contradict, because what you said was very, very insightful. Here's what my opinion is. And what, Jill, you said, is it the government? Yes, this is the bill. Yes, the government is teaching that. And Doc V being a counselor, yes. My only problem would be the teachers that have biases. Think about even in teaching race, even in teaching other things.
Absolutely.
Teachers have biases. Yes. So if you don't want those biases, you shouldn't have subjects this touchy that, affects people's lifestyles. Like your family could be one way, but the teacher bias is teaching them another way. Yes. And then that teaches that child, and that child brings that bias home, and that causes more. So I agree that it should not be taught in the classroom, that it should be taught at home. Yes. Because we all have biases. We all have our bias to some form or fashion.
I definitely agree with that. And I'll tell you this, not to pick on the teenagers, but this is a truth. My students are 11th and 12th graders. The children, the teenagers, the students are totally different today than they used to be way back when. And so when I say that, just some of the conversation when they're talking amongst themselves, peer-to-peer conversation will blow your wig off. And as a teacher, do you pretend like you don't hear it and you just let the conversation do what it's going to do. You interrupt the conversation and say a young lady shouldn't be speaking like that, etc. You have to know the school system. You have to know the students that you're dealing with today. And so sometimes a student will say, Miss V, can I ask you a personal question?
No.
and you that's the
No.
first thing you want to do is say, honey,
No.
let's just stick to the books.
Right.
Let's just stick to the books, right? But they really need to ask you this question because they're trying to make some decisions. And then when you hear that they're getting ready to go visit somebody in California they just met online, you don't want to get in that. But sometimes you say, honey, you better stay at home. You better go. So it depends on the conversation. So I understand what you're saying. And all I'm saying is a teacher know we know our position. Mm-hmm. And so those biases, they're going to always exist with everybody in every profession. And so it's not as bad as people making it seem.
Yeah,
So.
but I think you're making a different point. And I'm not going to contradict your point or argue your point. But I do say it's more human when you find danger. That's a horse of a whole nother
But that
color.
was just one. Just
Okay.
for sake of time. But I'm saying there's so many other
gotcha.
things I could go in,
Yeah.
stealing money,
Yeah.
just different things that you hear and you know about because the student is talking about it. Sneaking boys in the house when mom's not there.
Right.
And you hear all these things. All I'm saying, a teacher would never be able to teach if they continue to run to the office to tell every little thing that they hear going on in the household. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I stole $20 out of my mom's purse last night because I needed it. Do I go tell? You see what I'm saying? So it's just so many different things going on. And so sometimes you choose to just stay
But
silent.
you said that really well, Clarence.
I tried to. All right, but here we are. Now we're going to get into this one, and this one is about oppression. And this was a comment. It was actually an email that really the person went in detail. So we're going to try to walk through this, and it might take up the rest of our time, but we're going to deal with this and address it. Now, we were talking about oppression yesterday and oppressors. And this person wrote to us, the oppressor, and they put that in capital letters. This is to Black America or African Americans or whatever they want to be called. This is my personal perspective. They are some of the greatest oppressors in the world, all in capital letters again. Black people do more harm to themselves than any other set of humans to my knowledge. And they gave us several points. Actually, they gave us 10 points.
And did they send a picture of themselves?
No, they did not send a picture of themselves. But here's where we are. It says, the first point is, you kill each other at alarming rates, yet you complain about police brutality. And let me get the second one in, and we're going to deal with them in twos. You do not support each other like you should. Jealousy, envy towards one another. Now.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
First of all, or whatever they want to be called.
Let's unpack this.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's unpack
No,
this.
I'm just saying. I get it, though, because sometimes I get confused. I don't know what to call myself. I'm filling out papers. I don't know if I'm African American, Black,
It depends on the
melanin,
paper.
brown. No.
Others, it depends on what's
I'm
what's
just saying,
listed.
or
Yeah.
other at this point,
Yeah.
but to get into the thick of it, I mean, I get it. I guess it wouldn't matter what color the person was that was saying this, but it'd be interesting to know if it was coming from a Black person that felt this way.
Well,
So-
and we did touch on this a little bit last night when we talked about internalized racial oppression. So like when a group has their own fight within their own culture. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree. I do not agree that Black people are the greatest oppressors in the world. I think that is absolutely false. I think we could probably, if given some time, could back that up with some facts.
We can. I can
How about-
do. I
I
can
was
debunk
gonna
that
say, not
in
even
one
with time.
in one sentence or
Yes.
one word.
Okay, go.
Colonization.
Yeah.
Black people did not colonize. None of them.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm talking about how about power? So
Power.
when you start thinking about that, you can just look at power privilege.
Yes.
And so that wipes that theory out.
And Black people do more harm to themselves than any other set of humans, to my knowledge. I believe that all races are capable of doing harm to themselves. I think the first paragraph is just kind of, I don't know. Let's go on a little bit because I mean none of that is really sensible.
And when you say do harm, okay, so let's be truthful and entertain the comment. So we can be real and we can look at ways that we do harm ourselves. And obviously all cultures can look
Yeah.
at ways they harm themselves. But since they're talking about Black people, what ways do we feel, Clarence, since Jill may not be able to speak to this personally, what ways do we harm ourselves and you know it to be true?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
And
I'm gonna go
then-
to the second
Then Jill can
point.
sprinkle on that.
When it
with
says
her
you
friends.
don't support each other like you should, jealousy and envy. Now I
Yes.
can only speak to this because I'm Black and this is my culture. I'm not going to speak on another culture. I do find in a lot of instances, but not a great majority, we don't, because we have this sensibility that Black people can't work together. That's
Yeah.
something we always say.
That's right.
Black people can't get along or do business together. These are
Yes.
things that we say. Because we've been programmed like that, we believe that and we don't practice anything other than that.
Yes.
So I
Agreed.
think in that aspect, that is a good portionally true.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's the same way. So, just to piggyback off what you're saying, as a business owner, and I can tell you this, almost 30 years in, I can tell you, like the issue I'm having right now, I wouldn't have that issue if I didn't have to help so many of us so
Right.
that we can establish and start a business, and then they could be pouring back into my company. But for those that are able to rent a booth from my salon, they choose to go rent a booth from the white man's salon because that's what it is. Keeping it real, he's white. But they choose to go rent from a white man's salon, and they will make every excuse in the book why and justify why they won't rent from a Black person, even if it's not me, but they won't rent from a Black person. And then remember, we talked about before, if you're not happy with something, if something's not happening in that salon or that atmosphere or that restaurant, why not have that communication? It doesn't happen. We would rather take our dollars and go somewhere else. So we are not about building each other up a lot of times. And it's not across the board, but for the most part,
Yeah.
what I have experienced in my own business, that's what I see.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot. We talk about the lack of support, the jealousy,
Yes.
the envy. So, I mean, I agree with that.
So that's the part I see as far as
I
us
totally,
harming ourselves.
Jill hit on this, but I totally disagree that we kill each other in a disproportionate rate than anybody else. I think I've always said this, and I had debates with other people. I think we need to take Black on Black crime out of our vernacular because it's crime of proximity. Who I'm close to is who I'm going to harm.
Yeah.
White people do the same thing.
Yeah.
Asian people do the same thing.
Yes.
Who I'm close to is who I'm going to harm.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think, but we are disproportionately killed by the police than any other race. That's statistical fact.
And that's where I was
And
going to
so we
go with
get it.
that. Because, so if you have white people in a demographic area, like you just said, if we looked that up, it would probably be, pretty close. But the difference is white people aren't being killed by the police as much as African Americans are. So why would white people scream about police brutality when our culture isn't at the forefront of being the victim of it? So, I mean, that's just common sense right there.
Yeah.
We have nothing to scream about when it comes to that.
I'm going to hit 3 because I want to get everything in before we run out of time.
Okay.
So it says, your homes are broken. It doesn't matter if it's a single parent home. Yes, it's harder, but it doesn't mean that it has to be broken. You suffer in education and your communities are broken.
Wait a minute. Okay, you saying your homes are broken.
Your homes and your community, let's put those together.
Yeah.
Your homes and your communities are broken. Broken in spirit, broken in two, robbed, are broken.
Well, and again, we can't infer what they're saying.
Okay, I know.
But I'm going to
doesn't
try to
matter
put them in
if it's
their set because think about what Americans tell us,
Okay.
especially in single parent homes, that the single parent, and they basically say single mother. They don't say
Okay,
single parent. They
yeah,
say
they do
single
say
mother
single
home.
mother. Mhm.
They say that she struggles. She's on welfare.
Okay.
She have to work 3 or 4 jobs. She's still not doing this. She can't afford childcare. So it gives you the illusion that it's not functioning. So if it's not functioning, what is it? It's
Okay,
broken.
Broken. Okay, gotcha. From that perspective.
From that perspective. But I'm
Okay.
not justifying what they're saying. I'm just
Exactly.
saying,
No. I understand that. And then the question is, why is it broken? So we do understand that when we do have certain household where a mother, and we have also talked about this before, but where that mother in that house, that single mother, has to get help from the welfare department, the government has to step in and I'll say be the father so to speak. They got to make the ends meet for this single mother. A lot of times they shut the door to that man being a part of that family,
Mhm.
because if he join it in holy matrimony and try to do the right thing, then they're going to start cutting the check.
Right.
Right.
So they're going to cut her off, and now she's struggling even more.
Right.
Mhm.
So it suffers, and that's one reason why we have a broken.
And when we look at the word, so they said communities are broken, homes are broken. So are the homes broken or are they dismantled? Are the communities broken or are they dismantled? Because this, and we could go way back, we talk about it all the time, that there are systems put into place. So let's be real. A lot of times the home is broken because the foundation that was put there to begin with wasn't steady purposely.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is about dismantling, not about a home that chose to be broken. If you take a man out of the home and you put him in prison, you leave the son to do the man's job. We talk about this all the time. So, I mean, it's super broad. We could talk about all of these for a long time.
I'm just going to say one thing. I come from a single parent home. My home was not broken. We were a loving, connected family. My home was not broken.
And
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I don't think some
Right.
homes that have two parents that's from other cultures are
Mhm.
more
Are
damaged
broken.
and
There you
broken
go.
than the single parent home that I
I was
came
hoping
from.
we got to talk on that.
So-
Sprinkle
so
something
I-
on that, because I do come from a 2-parent home. And, I mean, my home wasn't broken. That's why I was like, okay, when you say that, that's broad.
But and you hit on this about the community and the family. We're going to combine it. There are systematic things that keep the community, and I'm going to say the community's broken. I think the system which the community has to operate in is broken,
Right.
because like the welfare system, if the father wants to be there, they start taking away child care, medical care, and two good people working minimum jobs trying to make it. You make it harder for them, and that's the system. That's not the two people. Minimum wage is $7.25, I believe. It might be $8. I don't think $7.50. I think minimum wage.
Our fact finder was
$7.50. I was trying to make sure I got my fact finder. $7.50 is minimum wage. Two people. That's $15 an hour for two people.
yeah,
Two people,
yeah.
and they're trying to make it, but the system
And-
makes it harder.
And that's why I said, so when we talk about broken, that's why my first thing was broken in what? Spirit or whatever. Because you can be broken physically, but as long as you still have hope and you have aspiration and you have your spirit intact, you can survive.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
And the
let's make
education
sure
system.
we never forget.
And we got
Got
3
it.
or 4 more, but I'm gonna hit on the education system. All this take is funding.
Mhm.
If y'all fund the inner city schools like you should do the suburban schools, we wouldn't have broken education.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
curriculum's
Fun.
not even the same.
Yes. So that goes back to oppression. If you hold the money, are we not oppressed?
So that, okay.
That
this
was
what
education.
this for. Okay.
Number 4.
We
Now-
suffer in education.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that.
Now we're gonna
Okay.
hit 6, 7, 8. Well, let's finish them out. And y'all,
This person just need to join the panel.
well, I wish we could get them in. It says.
yeah.
Your youth seem to be extremely angry with the mindset of entitlement,
Wow.
self-destruction. Your music is of death with little
Ooh.
to no life. You verbally destroy yourself as a culture. You have no core leadership. Who is the primary leaders in the black community? And don't say Joe Biden. And he was the VP
Wow.
to the black president that did nothing for you. You fill the prisons.
That's a lot.
And you are the richest yet most poverty-stricken group of people in the world.
Mm.
Do you ever know why? Do you even know why?
I feel like just
Now,
just exit the room on this. Is too much to even.
well, it's a lot to digest, but I'm going to say not all of this is not true.
No, I know. I
Well,
and we've talked about a
Not
lot
all
of
of it
this.
is not
That's
true.
why
You
I'm saying
got
it's a lie.
what does yours say? Doc V, eat the meat and spit out the bones.
Yes,
is that
I
your
got
saying?
to.
I would like to
Yes.
take number 6. I would
Yes.
like
Go
to
ahead.
start out. So, your youth seem to be extremely angry with a mindset of entitlement, self-destructing.
Wow.
So, probably about a year ago, or maybe less, we had a group of young teenagers that were here with us in the studio. So, one of the questions that I asked them, and when I think back to being 13, 14, 15, the things that were in my mind. And then I ask them the question, what is in your mind? What do you think of? What do you focus on? And their answer was shocking. They said survival. So when you have a group of, it was young black teenagers that are focusing on survival at an age when they should be focusing on thriving instead of surviving, they are going to have a sense of anger. They are seeing their brothers, fathers, uncles getting shot on video, nothing being done about it. This is what they are seeing. So, of course, they're going to appear angry.
Yeah. Now, again, crime of proximity. We're going to go with that. So I don't think our youth kill more than anybody else, because name me one black school shooter. Name me one black school shooter.
Well,
name me one black school shooter.
I was gonna say, yeah, I believe so, but I don't want to have them come forth and then stir the pot and get more going. But
there was one in Colorado, but he shot people. I mean, that was a gang-related thing. I'm talking about mass school
I know
shooters.
exactly what you mean. But one of the things I do want to point out is if we stop putting a spotlight on the negative in our communities when it comes to young people, then we wouldn't have that thought. Okay, so let's highlight some of the ones that are high achievers academically in sports and doing amazing things, playing violins and pianos and all these other things that they're doing that we never get to hear about and never get to celebrate in our community, in our culture. So that's where I stand with that. So I don't see a whole culture or a lot of angry black youth like they say.
Now I'm going to touch on 7 because I'm in music. Yes, our music is, in a lot of cases, you know, derogatory and to ourselves, to women and things. I agree with that. But you only hear that on the radio because we don't program those stations anymore. You only see those videos because we don't do that. You only hear that being pushed because we don't own record labels anymore.
And can I say that one day I called the radio station and said, how dare you play that particular song? And the guy did say that that's what you people want to hear, your people want to hear. And I said, excuse me? So clarification, that's what people said they want to hear. Another time I called, you shouldn't play that song. A real popular DJ around here. This wasn't that long ago. And that's when he said, oh, was that in the lineup? I said, what do you mean? You didn't play it? He said, oh, we don't choose our music. Our bosses does. And unfortunately, this was a black DJ. His bosses are white. The music that was playing in the middle of the afternoon was that song that says, I'm paying that be rich. What's that song? Bruno, that
Mars,
new song? Yeah. And it was just no bleeps or anything in the middle of the day. And so we don't have control over that. Now, what I would say, and this to the people that want to have a fight in the community, fight for that. So if you want to make some changes in the community, that's one place you can start, is with the music that they play on the radio stations all through the day. Get some censorship going on with the music.
Now, the last 2, you have no core leadership. Now, I can't, across the board, I can't dispute that.
Okay.
I can't dispute that across the board. We do have leadership, but our leadership is just as separated. In most cases, they don't come together in most cases. We need, when they say core, that's what I'm going to lead. Core, we need to come together in a core and work together. We have a lot of leaders, but we have a lot of separate leaders.
That's right. And you know, I don't want to just back all the way up, but I wanted to touch the end of one that talked about self-destructing. And I know,
go ahead.
Yeah, but I believe it flows with this leadership one. So it was a song way back out when, and it was You're Headed for Self-Destruction.
Yes.
Do you remember that song?
Yes.
Who sang that?
That was the East Coast All-Stars.
Okay, so y'all need to listen to that song. It's a positive song. It's true. I think it applies even to today.
Right.
So when you start talking about leadership, Michael Jackson said it best. You have to start with the man in the mirror. Self-destruction is about self.
Right.
And the opposite of that, and building self, starts with self. Right. And that's how we can get into and begin to develop the leaders for tomorrow. The reason we don't have any leaders today is because nobody wants to do the job. I believe it's heavy, and you have a lot of people that don't want to carry it. They don't want to carry the load, carry the burden of being the leader today. So outside of the pastors in the communities that we often rely on, I think we need to figure out who are the sleeping giants. Wake up. And we're sounding the alarm.
I agree. And again, like I say, I'm not going to totally disagree with it, but I'm going with the word core. And I'm going to agree with them on that Because like I say, Doc V, you got this group over here, you got this group over here, this group over here. They're all fighting for the same thing, but they're not working together.
working together.
So if they're not the core, if you can stay separate, then anything divided will not stand.
Yeah.
So if you bring it together, you do it in numbers, you do it in strength, I think we can move better and forward.
We got to do better, and we got to stop just attaching the word united to our name.
Right. And actually
unite.
Yeah. And before we get out of here, the last one, you are one of the richest nations and yet the most poverty stricken. In Black America, that's true. We are the 13th richest nation in the world. We spend 80% of our income. That's what the studies show.
And I was going to say, you read it as nation. I was thinking it just said you're the richest Black.
Yes.
Yeah. You're a part.
Oh,
group.
yeah.
It says group of people.
Yes.
I don't know
But we are the
about that.
13th richest nation in the world. The Black America is the 13th richest nation in the world.
13th is not the richest.
No, not the richest, but
Okay.
it says
that's
one
why
of
I
the
was
richest.
trying to understand the comment. Thank you, though, for your comment.
But and we spend and we don't spend our money always wisely.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. We do waste. If we look at areas where we waste, we could probably hurt.
And we're gonna
White
flip
businesses.
that. Yeah, we're gonna flip that in
A
community.
lot of white
I was gonna go
businesses.
back. We're gonna flip that into community being broken. If we invested back in our community,
Yes.
if we started business and kept businesses in our community, we kept the dollar. They say the dollar spends 1 hour in the Black community, where in the Asian community and Jewish community, it spends 10 to 13 days.
Right.
That's wild to even think of.
I know.
I know we've said that before, but just to think about it like that.
Just realizing it's true.
So again, Doc V, we ate the meat and spit out the bones. Now,
Yes.
I'm not disputing all of this.
Oh,
But
no.
we gotta
absolutely.
reflect.
That's why I said I had to own it where you own it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what it is. Now, the oppression is power that we don't have. Oppression is a power coming down. You mentioned that yesterday, the press. Oppression is power coming down. So if the power is coming down, and somebody asks, well, if we're oppressed, what about these people making, that people making? There's always exceptions to every rule.
Absolutely.
There are always anomalies. But for the masses, and I said this to Jill, and you mentioned this, but for us to help, white people that are not in the top 1% got to realize that they are just as oppressed as the Black people.
And absolutely.
Yeah,
And-
it's true.
And we got to understand we're fighting the same fight. So stop fighting each other. Let's get out of each other's ways and let each other fight their own battles to get their own forward. And if you come alongside of us, work with us, let's work together.
Absolutely.
But that's the only way it's going to work, because our oppressors are powers that we can't see.
And that's what I was getting ready to say. And that's for a lot of people. So people have to understand and realize sickness is an oppression. Anxiety is an oppression. Depression. And we went through a list of them. And so those things, and more than anything, addictions and strongholds.
Right.
And we know those principalities from higher places.
Right.
We are all oppressed
Right.
in
Absolutely.
one way or another.
Yeah.
And we can't forget to thank, even if we don't always agree with the comments, there it always makes for good discussion. So we
Yes.
want to thank the person who
Everybody.
sent
We wanna
this
thank
in,
everybody.
all of our comments.
Yes.
They were all great comments,
Yes.
gave us a great conversation. But we want to thank you. This concludes our week of Neutral Voices. We're going to ask you to join us again next week, where we're going to have more thought-provoking conversation. And we're going to tell you, join us next week. And always, always, always protect your mind.